Greetings, it's your brother teacher Ajamu Minka Kafele, meaning my fight for justice in the name and will of Allah. God is worth dying for. I want to speak to you today on the truth of God. This is part one of a series of videos that I will be doing. This section is titled, God is only a mysterious spirit. Is this religious blasphemy? Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is how they change things up. And because we don't research and read and study, we get duped. We get hoodwinked. Elijah Muhammad said, history is best qualified to reward our research. I expanded it, if you will, by saying history is best qualified to reward our research for the truth. Truth is revealed to the seeker of knowledge. So if you're sitting around and not reading and studying actual facts of history, you're dumbing yourself down just in living. You're not accessing the truth, especially when we live in a world of lies where the teachers, even if they wanted to be right, are systemically teaching us lies. So when you look at this here, John 24, God is a spirit, and you go to the Greek version, because it's not like the King James version is anywhere close to the original. King James version tells you that it's translated out of the original tongues. We just don't ask what the original tongues is and revised. We don't ask what is revised. Well, we got proof of the revision right here. When you read it in Greek, the literal verse is the breath of life, God. There was need for his worshipers within divine inspiration and reality to bow down. When you get to the King James version, John 4:24, God is a spirit and they worship him, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. It's just off. And the proof of this, as they state here, interested in hidden aspects, the most surprising discovery in the Greek is that there is no is here between the word translated as spirit and God. There is no is here in the Greek version between the word translated as spirit and God. However, there is a sense of equating God with the breath of life or divine inspiration. However, the feeling in Greek is that this comes from God, not that it defines God. Spirit is inspiration, breath of life. Breath is meaning ability to breathe and hence life. You got something living and moving when you're talking about God. You got something animated. You got something in action. You don't have something immaterial. You certainly don't have something that is nothing. Zoroastrian influenced it all. Zoroastrianism is why we have God is a spirit. But before Zoroastrianism, there's a connection to India and Hindu. And if you know anything about Hindu, there's a plethora of gods when it comes to Hinduism. Pre-Zoroastrian Iran religion, the language of Iran is closely akin to that of northern India. Hence, the people of the two lands probably had common ancestors who spoke a common Indo-Aryan language. The religion of those peoples has been reconstructed by means of common elements contained in the sacred books of Iran and India, mainly the Avesta and the Vedas. The Avesta is Iran, the Vedas is India. Both collections exhibit the same kind of polytheism with many of the same gods. It goes on to say important changes then must have taken place on the Iranian side, not all of which can be attributed to the prophet. The prophet is this black man. This is a mural of Zoroaster in Tehran, which is in Iran. Unlike his Western depictions, here his skin is depicted dark brown like many of the Indians. This is a mural that is in the Tehran temple. The changes that must have taken place were on the Iranian side, not all of which can be attributed to the prophet. You got it. They changed it altogether. The Zoroastrianism changed from what was originally taught to it under Veda or Hinduism and the pantheon of gods, right? So here it's talking about unseen and seen deities and iconic worship. In the hymns of Atharavan Zarathustra, which is Zoroaster, it is noted from the scholar on Vedic and Avestian texts that the schism between Iranian and Indian branches of the Aryan family took place over their theological system. The difference he states, seems to have started over the use of icons in worship. Diva came to mean a visible God, God represented by an idol. I think that's a good choice of words, but an anthropomorphic God. And Asura, an invisible, formless God. And Asura, remove the A, you get Surah, like in the Quran, just so you know that. And Asura is an invisible, formless God. Some people preferred the use of an icon. They were the Diva Yasnas. Others prohibited. They were the Ara Tekesa. Later became the Mazda Yasna. So you see the connection. And you take this into this Zoroastrianism and you bring it into Greek and the Greek philosophers. And you see this statement here: the simplicity of ancient Zoroastrian worship practice, a profound philosophy, so they say, and the lack of religious contrivances or images could have been why Plato saw Zoroastrianism as the purest worship of divine beings. He saw it as being purer than what they had. I don't know, maybe because what you had rooted from black gods, right? But nonetheless, he saw it as pure. He then converted, if you will, and took that philosophy into Hellenism, into Greek, and it in fact impacted the whole world as the Greeks continued to have their empire, as well as Persia never let go of itself, and it's had its impact. And when they came up in Islam, or when they revived the Persian culture under the cloak of Islam, it was still there. The meaning and spirit of it was still there. The ideas of God were still there. They never left, but they were departed from the original ideal and concepts through the ages of time of one supreme being accompanied by a pantheon of gods, and that you yourself could be a god. Because, ladies and gentlemen, when you go back in history, there was always, all over the place, a council of gods, a pantheon of gods, and in that pantheon was one supreme being. It's not new. They changed it. They changed it because it was a black god. If you start to put man qualities with the supreme being, the natural question is going to be, what does he look like? Describe him. And you aren't going to be able to say he's white. This verse sums it up and says it all. 1 Timothy 3:16. This truth in the Bible states, and without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. Well, somebody might say, well, it is controversial. No, truth is not controversial. Your belief is, which contains a lie. Your faith is, which is still a state of unknown, which contains a conviction of the lie. Your thought can be, because it is not an absolute truth, and certainly your opinion. And without controversy, so in other words, in truth, the great mystery of godliness is God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, flesh, life being breathed into it to make it animated, and it was seen of angels.